Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta, and you're watching Basis Points, where we dive deep into the numbers and the stories that drive our economy and shape our world. The headlines. The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines denies any foreign influence in the agency despite the presence of Chinese investors on its board. The Makati Business Club flags what it calls pork barrel in the 2025 budget, raising questions about whether politics is overriding progress. A historic ceasefire in Gaza as Israel and Hamas strike a deal. Could this mark the start of lasting peace? Let's take a look at how the financial markets performed overnight. Now on Wall Street, U.S. stocks rallied Wednesday, driven by lower than expected December core inflation data and strong earnings from major U.S. banks. The Labor Department also reported that the Consumer Price Index saw its largest increase in 9 months, mainly due to rising energy costs.
Stocks are very strong today because of the cool CPI print that came out at just 0.2 versus expectations of 0.3, driven by just ongoing pretty broad-based deceleration of inflation, particularly in auto services, which has been very, very hot. And this fits into our long-term view that completely counter to the market, which is inflation's decelerating, rates are going to come down, Trump administration's not inflationary, policies are not inflationary. So you're seeing that in the market today because bond prices have been skyrocketing, dragging stocks down. And we also had strong bank earnings today. So those are driving a very powerful stock market rally today.
The S&P 500 climbed 1.83%, the Nasdaq Composite jumped nearly 2.5%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 1.65%. Now, over in Europe, markets also closed higher. The FTSE 100 higher by 1.21%, Germany's DAX up by 1.5%, and France's CAC 40 up by 0.7%. Here at home, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines assures the public that its Chinese investors pose no threat to national security. The NGCP issued this statement amid growing concerns over foreign influence in the country's power transmission network, especially in light of tensions between China and the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea. Out of the NGCP's 10 board members, now 4 out of the NGCP's board members represent the State Grid Corporation of China, which owns a 40% stake as the company's technical partner. The majority 60% stake is held by Filipino shareholders, including Bilyonaryo's Henry C. Jr. and Roberto Coyuto. The NGCP stresses that the 40% foreign ownership is in full compliance with the Philippine Constitution, which limits foreign investments in public utilities. The NGCP reiterates that Filipino control remains intact, easing fears over national security while maintaining reliable partnerships for infrastructure development. On another front, Finance Secretary Ralph Recto addresses issues surrounding national tax allotment shares for local government units, promising clarity and fairness in the process. This matters for Philippine businesses as proper funding for LGUs can drive local economic growth and improve infrastructure across the country. In a dialogue with city mayors, Recto explains that the National Tax Allotment, or NTA, is calculated based on the Supreme Court's Mandanas-Garcia ruling and the Constitution, ensuring a transparent and fair distribution. Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong, who previously claimed LGUs were being shortchanged in their NTA shares, apologized to Recto, saying his concerns were based on misunderstandings. Mayors also thanked the Department of Finance for providing clarity and for taking steps to address their concerns. This move ensures equitable funding for LGUs, empowering them to improve services and to invest in projects that benefit local communities and foster national economic growth. The number of Filipino households facing involuntary hunger surges to 26%, the highest level since the COVID-19 pandemic. The latest Social Weather Stations, or SWS survey, in December reveals that at least 1 in 4 Filipino families experienced hunger and lack of food at least once in the past 3 months. This marks a 3-point increase from the 23% reported in the previous quarter. The full year 2024 hunger average hit 20%, which is nearly double the 2023 figure and just below the record high seen in 2020. The non-commissioned fourth quarter 2024 social weather survey interviewed 2,160 adults across the country. The rising hunger rate is a stark reminder of the urgent need for economic interventions and support to vulnerable communities. Now, the Management Association of the Philippines reaffirms its commitment to advancing programs that promote responsible business practices. Sujin Kim has the details.
We will continue pushing for the discourse and activities to champion responsible business, uplift communities, and contribute to a resilient and equitable future for the Philippines.
Stronger actions for responsible business and national progress. This was the commitment of the 77th President of the Management Association of the Philippines, Alfredo Panlilio, who also serves as the chair of Maya Bank. MAP has identified 7 critical issues to tackle head-on this year, including corruption, education, economic growth, and ease of doing business. MVP Group Chairman and Bilyonaryo Manny Pangilinan urged swift and targeted action to combat poverty.
What's in front of our face really is poverty. To how to uplift the welfare of our people. The ultimate test of our efficiency as a business is really how well have we done better for our people, for our customers, and generally the people of the Philippines in terms of the job, in terms of the business that we conduct. Right?
In this room is a wealth and several thousand years of experience, skills, and expertise earned through the years of management practice, which has produced insightful wisdom of significant value to the challenges of today, and hopefully contribute to the efforts towards a better future.
This year, MAP is pushing for investments that create jobs and drive economic opportunities for Filipinos.
We will continue to push for vital policy reforms through executive or legislative action that will eliminate corruption, improve the ease of doing business, ensure food security through agricultural productivity, and sustain an enabling business environment for local and foreign investors.
MAP is also targeting programs to empower the youth through education and health initiatives, including the fight against malnutrition and child stunting.
The objective is for the youth to become productive members of society with competitive skills and capacity that will ensure a progressive economy of the future. 2025 will see the realization of these goals.
Manny Pangilinan emphasized the role of artificial intelligence as a tool for tackling complex problems and driving innovation.
AI with its immense power is not an existential threat, it is a tool. Together they form the scaffoldings of the next great cathedrals of progress. But scaffoldings alone do not build edifices. It is human creativity and ingenuity. The minds, the hearts, and the hands of men and women ultimately are responsible for turning visions into grandiose creations. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world.
Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Lawmakers criticized the Agriculture Department's proposal to impose a maximum suggested retail price for rice, calling it unrealistic and unsustainable. Xandro Ochona has the details.
As the House Quintacom resumes its investigation on the rising prices of food in the country, rice retailers maintain they are not to blame for the high cost of the staple.
Ang problema namin retailer, kaya medyo mahal ang bentahan namin as retailer, siyempre nandun sa wholesaler. Then yung costing namin, siyempre lahat bago mag-earn ng isang negosyante, kailangan ma-less muna yung expenses namin, like say rental, cost ng manpower, etc., etc.
They say at most they earn 5 pesos per kilo from premium imported rice. Numbers from the Philippine Statistics Authority show increasing prices year on year, but from October to December last year, there appears to be a downward trend. A kilo of rice cost 45 pesos and 42 centavos in October 2023. In the same period last year, it was at 50 pesos and 22 centavos. In December 2024, the price of rice went down to 48 pesos and 81 centavos. PSA recorded the current farm gate price of rice at 20 pesos and 70 centavos per kilo. But the Agriculture Department plans to implement a maximum suggested retail price of 58 pesos per kilo of rice on January 20.
Maximum suggested retail price. So you cannot go above the maximum.
And you intend to put it at?
58 at this time, sir. So
Diyos ko, ang taas nun.
This earned the ire of House members as the price ceiling is set close to premium rice instead of the price more accessible to the poor.
Kung sinasabi nyo 58 yung maximum, so ibig sabihin nun, pwedeng gawin ng retailer na 58 yun, samantalang pwede niyang ibaba ng 55. Ang pinag-usapan natin dito, yung common, yung regular milled rice, premium kasi yung sinasabi niya, hindi po yan inaabot ng mga mahihirap.
The basis of the MSRP is wrong. And it's opening the possibility of abuse.
Lower price of rice was a campaign promise yet to be fulfilled by the administration. For now, government agencies are looking at other solutions.
The National Price Coordinating Council met yesterday, and we are looking at yung possibility po of declaring that there is an extraordinary increase in prices to allow the DA Secretary to declare a food security emergency. But we're still working on the resolution.
Once a food security emergency is declared, the Agriculture Secretary will be given powers to dispense the NFA buffer stock to help lower the price of rice. Zandro Ochona, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
One of the country's top business organizations, the Makati Business Club, is sounding the alarm over the 2025 national budget, calling out the diversion of funds as pork barrel in the service of patronage politics. Here's the full story. The Makati Business Club's executive director, Apa Ongpin, is raising concerns over the national budget, calling out what he sees as a shift in priorities that could affect the economy and Filipinos directly. Ongpin is criticizing the diversion of funds from essential services like education and welfare to local projects he labels as pork barrel, which he says could be used to gain political favor.
We are more than dissatisfied and disappointed with the way the budget has, in our view, been twisted to serve patronage politics. The Constitution itself says you have to give the majority of the budget to social welfare, education, all of these things. And instead, they diverted a lot of that money to local infrastructure projects, which essentially are pork barrel, right? Because they require either certification or approval from local officials, congressmen, that sort of thing.
This matters because it could leave critical areas like health and education underfunded, while these discretionary funds could be misused, especially in an election year. Ongpin warns that this spending could also drive inflation, a problem that affects every Filipino as prices rise faster than incomes.
You're not creating value. You're simply transferring the money to people who are, gonna give it away, and therefore, when you're not creating goods, and you have too much money chasing after too few goods. What's that?
Despite his concerns, Ongpin remains optimistic about the economy. He projects GDP growth of 6 to 7% in 2025, but says that the government must control spending and prioritize transparency to ensure that this growth benefits everyone.
As early as now, we want to force transparency and accountability onto the bicameral committee so that they cannot, they cannot shuffle this thing around without being accountable for it.
With an election year ahead, Ongpin's message is a reminder that where the government spends matters, not just for economic stability, but for the future of every Filipino. We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line.
Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Rain Musnip. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey.
We empower.
Filipino startups can actually compete globally.
We motivate.
Growing retail interest today from a cryptocurrency perspective.
Changes that are vital.
We have high data privacy standards for all our clients.
Follow the Money with Rain Musngi.
Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.
Welcome back to Basis Points. Cash remittances from overseas Filipinos grew faster in November, showing signs of resilience amid global challenges. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas reports that remittances reached $2.8 billion in November, slightly higher than the $2.7 billion recorded in the same month in 2023. However, this figure is lower than the $3 billion reported in October of 2024 and is the lowest since May of last year. For the January to November 2024 period, remittances rose 3% to $31.1 billion, driven by growth in remittances from both land-based and sea-based workers. The United States remains the biggest source of remittances, contributing 40.9%, followed by Singapore, Saudi Arabia, Japan, and the United Kingdom. The increase in remittances continues to support the Philippine economy, boosting domestic spending and providing a buffer against external pressures. Now, the Philippine economy is expected to grow by 6.1% in 2025, according to a new forecast from debt watcher Moody's Ratings. Moody's describes this projection as above trend, while it falls just short of the 6.2% forecast made last year. It still sits within the government's 2025 growth target of between 6 to 8%. The debt watcher cites rising employment, public investments, and higher remittance inflows as the key drivers of economic performance. Although the outlook remains positive, the slightly lower projection underscores the need for proactive policies to maintain economic momentum and to support growth in a challenging global environment. Now, the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center is keeping a close watch on potential scams targeting candidates in the upcoming midterm elections. As Francis Fulve reports, over 6 million phone and text message scams were reported just last year.
Over 6 million scam text messages and more than 600,000 scam calls were reported on the mobile app Who's Call in 2024. According to Mel Megrino, country head of Gogoluk and Southeast Asia Regional Director for Information Security, there was a noticeable 15 to 18% increase in scam victims per quarter last year. The leading types of scams are those related to online shopping, loans or digital lending, investments, cryptocurrency, and job scams.
It's more of a cultural thing, so Filipinos would have a greater propensity to spend. Why? Because we do have more money in our wallets, right? So this is the time wherein people would actually get their bonuses, diba? So as well as their commissions, and also not to mention the remittances.
According to the CICC, the surge in scam coincides with the government's crackdown on illegal Philippine offshore gaming operations, or POGOs, nationwide. A study by the Global Anti-Scam Alliance shows Filipinos are adept in identifying suspicious transactions or scams. But there is increasing use of artificial intelligence in scams, including the creation of generative content or altering original materials. The problem lies in the public's reluctance to validate deepfake videos or voices. According to CICC Executive Director Yusek Alexander Ramos, SIM card registration has significantly helped identify scammers.
With the SIM card registration, we were able to reduce the number of vulnerabilities sa process. Okay? So most of these, ito yung bago na nakikita natin, are actually coming from social media platforms. Servers that are not covered by the provisions of the SIM card registration law. That's why we are proposing either an amendment or a new law, whichever na mabilis ipasa, to address the issue of social media platforms. Kasi doon nakakarga eh. Tumatawid ang content nila sa ating communications. Tandaan nyo, ang cellphone nyo has become a centerpiece of vulnerability.
Ramos also emphasized that the convergence of technologies heightens the risk of falling victims to scams, prompting the CICC to urge Congress to take action. The CICC will also monitor scams related to the upcoming May elections, focusing on emerging money distribution apps which may also be used in vote buying. CICC is coordinating with their financial technology or fintech industry partners to identify unregistered money distribution apps. Non-compliant apps could be banned in the country. Francis Polbe, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange opened just a few minutes ago. Let's take a look at the initial figures. At 9:54 this morning, the market is in positive territory, well entrenched in the green, higher by 1%, adding to the 0.5% gains which the market registered yesterday. Right now, the PSE index is up by 1% to 63.91, just nearing the 6,400 level. Now, igniting the positive sentiment, 3 global financial research and advisory firms, HSBC, Fitch Solutions, and Bank of America, project Philippine GDP growth to accelerate from 5.8% in 2024 to 6.3% in 2025, driven by monetary easing, improved private consumption, and a resilient service exports. And this positive outlook is bullish for equities, and we're seeing that reflected here. Share prices are up, PSE index up, broader all shares index mirroring the gains in the main gauge, higher by 1% to 37.15. Everything else, with all the sub-indices, I'm looking at a sea of green. The financials, industrial, holding firms, services, mining and oil, and property counters, all in the green, with the holding firms up markedly, up by 1.4%. Now, the foreign exchange market, the peso opened stronger against the greenback at 58.45 from its previous close of 58.58. And before we go, Israel and Hamas agree to a ceasefire deal in Gaza, marking a potential turning point in the conflict. This development holds significant implications for global business and trade. The agreement will be implemented in phases, starting with the release of 33 hostages held by Hamas. In exchange, Israel will free hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Then the ceasefire implementation is set to begin on Sunday. Negotiations for the second phase, which aims to bring an end to the war, are expected to start 16 days after the deal's implementation. Israel's military operations in Gaza have been ongoing for 15 months now, resulting in tens of thousands of Palestinian casualties. Now, what does this mean for business? A ceasefire there could help stabilize global oil prices, ease supply chain disruptions, and restore confidence in trade routes affected by the conflict. But long-term peace will be key to ensuring lasting economic and humanitarian gains.
And Egypt and Qatar will push Hamas to stay at the bargaining table and to get from stage 1 to stage 2. And the United States will push Israel to stay at the bargaining table to get from phase 1 and phase 2. So obviously those are promises we cannot make on behalf of the United States for any longer than the next 5 days. And so it's critical that all of the parties to the agreement and the other mediators see that when the United States is in the room making commitments, those are lasting commitments that extend beyond this administration into the next one.
And that's it for Basis Points. I'm Maiki Oreta. We'll be back tomorrow for more news on the financial markets and more. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.